Good evening, friends. Welcome back to our Thursday Blind Wine Mystery Tour. Let me know you're here with us. We've been having a little bit of difficulty. I'm sorry I'm 2 minutes late. The huge storm that just blew through, I think, might be wreaking a little bit of havoc with our internet connection. But if you're with us and you're seeing me now, let me know you're with us and we'll get underway. Before I do, I wanted to cover a couple things. Brian is here and Isabel is here. It's so great to have you with us. Christine, hey, how are you? And Susan's with us. Thank you so much for dropping by this week and chatting. It was nice to talk with you. It was really great to have a number of conversations this week. I got to say, on Tuesday, I had the Blackout Tuesday we all observed here at Field and Main, and it was a day of contemplation and a challenging day. And a reflection day that made me wonder whether we should kind of continue doing this this week, whether it made sense to do. And without even sharing that, without even voicing that thought, unsolicited yesterday and today, a number of you mentioned how much it meant to you that we got to get together this way and to share these types of experiences. One person in particular this afternoon shared with me how it was his highlight of his week. And he's a healthcare worker and he's working day in and day out with limited resources to do what he can. And this is something that provides him with a bit of a respite. And so I think it gave me resolve to continue to do this. And I appreciate that very much. What we're doing and what we're all doing in life is definitely magnified and put into stark focus by the last week's experience. But we should maintain our connection and maintain what we do with each other. It's very important at this time more than ever. And I've come to realize that yet again. And so I'm grateful to be here with all of you this evening, excited to be here with you this evening and with a white wine. I wanted to touch too on briefly the idea that we are experiencing a little more technical difficulty. So a number of you asked this week too in these conversations I've gotten a chance to have whether or not we'll be opening per the governor's statement that phase 2 is taking place at the end of this week. And we are not ready to do that just yet. We're not going to change our operation. We will continue to do the to-go and the heat and eat option, as well as a series of entrees that are now made hot to order. And we're going to reevaluate and continue to evaluate exactly when and how we will be opening. But we'll send out a missive at the end of this week, giving you a full direction of what you can come to expect from us in the next couple of weeks. So that's one thing I want to touch on before we get started. And in a wine note, in that e-blast that will come out later this week, I would like to offer all of you, because you're our great wine guests, the opportunity to have a pre-sale, if you will, for a unique opportunity that has just been presented to us. Domaine Pégao, which is a great producer in the Rhone Valley, makes well-regarded Chateauneuf du Pape. Their importer is a friend of ours and is in Warrenton, actually. And they approached us earlier and said, would you be interested in six packs of a vertical of 2012 through 2017, and we have those. So we have now available 2012, 13, 14, 15, 16, and 17 Domaine Pégao, straight from the winery. Their origin is perfect, they're pristine, and we're offering those bottles, a 6-pack of them for $550. So for less than $100 a bottle, you can have 6 different vintages in line, including the present release of 2017. So if you're interested in that and would like to take us up on that offer, then please email the first 6 people to email Tony, Tony, at fieldandmainrestaurant.com. We'll get those wines. So let's go ahead and get started. We've got Rick with us. The Torbitts are here. Exactly 3 years ago today, they said they visited Field, Maine for the first time. Oh, that's magnificent. That's great. Thank you. What a wonderful anniversary we get to spend with each other this evening. Carrie's here. Great. We've got Kate Robbins with us, and Craig and Erica. Kristen's with us. Perfect. Welcome, everybody. The foxes are in the house. Good. All right, we're on a white wine tonight. So let's get going. What do we see? Is this a pale wine? Is this kind of lemony colored? Is it rich in color? Is it more amber? Where would you place this, guys? Sarah and hopefully Nate are with us then. Swanbergs are here. Sarah, by note, 2 weeks ago, right, called the wine without having the wine in front of her. I am certain this evening she's going to get it again because now she actually has the wine to work with. So that's exciting. Becky, Al, Beth, and Steven are here. That's awesome. Hi, guys. And Matt and Kathleen are here too. Oh, perfect. Great. Yes, I'm glad you're with us. Matt got to work at home so he could actually enjoy this today. Isabel, right. Medium in color. Yeah, lemon medium. Kathy's with us too. Great. And Eric Eisenberg is with us. Thanks to Eric and Dawn. Yeah. Eric played last week, which was great. Susan says pale gold. 1+1 for lemony color from Kristen. That's right. Yeah. And Barry and Bambi are joining us. Good. So lemon colored. It's pale, right? Ish. Medium intensity, maybe. It's not super light, right? But it is lighter on the lighter side. It's got kind of a golden reflection. Part of that's the lighting. Part of that's the super cloud cover outside and my darker table. But nevertheless, it is sort of a pale lemon, goldish kind of hue. All right. What do you smell? Tran says it's kind of hot, so we started drinking. That's great. And Klaus, greetings to you from Marshall, and your greetings are received well from Reston. Thank you. Chris is back for redemption from last week. Yep, that's good. All right, so from the visual, we see that it's pale, lemon, maybe a little bit gold. It has some richness to it or not. Is this a light-bodied wine by way of appearance? What do you think? What are those tiers or legs showing us? What does the viscosity look like on this particular wine? Do we have any indication because of that of what this wine might be in terms of where it comes from? So if it's got a rich leg, if it's got some viscosity to it, it's either got residual sugar or potentially high alcohol, which would indicate potentially that it would come from a warmer climate. Just as we talked about each week, we're just trying to gather some information. What is this wine telling us before we taste it? Yes, honeysuckle is thrown out there. Pear, flowers, citrus, honey element a couple times, honeysuckle. So we're in a definite honeyed aroma, or honeyed area and a honeyed aroma. Viscosity coming from Kathy, yeah, I think it does. It has some viscosity, right? So some potential richness, which would also go nicely with the idea of some honeyed profile. And for our benefit, as we've been talking over the time, right, what is it that honey kind of presents? There's a couple of varietals that jump out with some honeyed profile. Petit Manseng we've talked about in the past. Chenin Blanc, we should consider. Chardonnay, right off the bat. And so hold me to it. Isabel in particular, we were talking last week that we walked right past Nerello Mascalese. I mentioned it and then didn't stick with it, and I didn't go back to touching on it and can really consider it. Even as we had calls for Southern Italian wines by way of the Aglianico, I didn't think it was Aglianico, and I was right, but I didn't give enough consideration to the Southern wine that I had already mentioned in the way of Nerello Mascalese. So let's consider right off the bat, we haven't even really dove into this wine, but we're thinking about Chenin Blanc, Petit Manseng, Chardonnay, maybe Riesling. So we're already flagging things for ourselves. Orange Blossom, Kate threw out there. Great. I'm going to start smelling it to join you. And Sharon, great call, Viognier. So flowery elements, Orange Blossom, Viognier. Yeah, Viognier has got to be in that mix too. And I was on a chat the other day with Kristen Devilich and the Walshes, and we were talking a little bit about Viognier. And one of the things I said, for me in Virginia in particular, Viognier always has some element of the bee, whether it be beeswax to something quite honeyed. And with the descriptions that we've got already going right now of floral and honeyed element, we are definitely going to put Viognier in the camp, right? So without rushing to judgment, it does sound like right off the nose we're looking at a potential Viognier. But we're also going to consider Chenin Blanc, Chardonnay, Riesling, Petit Manseng. All right, yeah, I'm confirming all of that. Viognier would be consistent with a little bit higher alcohol, so that's a good thing. A little bit more texture. The color is potentially consistent too, so cool. All right, shall we taste? Yeah. Young. Sharon's saying she loves the combo. Matthew's throwing out there Albarino on top of Viognier, which is something we should consider too, for sure. Is this wine dry? Yes. Jan, there is a salty salinity to this, which was a nice potential element for that Albarino call. Albarino, I get more pear, but let's sit with Albarino for a second too. Let's do what we can with the taste first before we kind of work our way into flavors again. But this is a dry wine. What kind of body does it have? Is it light, medium, robust? Is it skim milk, 2% milk, whole milk? Where does this sit? It's a medium-bodied wine. It's got some pretty good acidity, doesn't it? Would you call this light, medium acidity, racier acidity? Is it got a lot of acidity? I'm still salivating, which makes it a little bit tougher call for Viognier. Because Viognier, generally speaking, is one of those grapes that as it ripens, its acidity definitely drops, like most grapes do. But Viognier doesn't necessarily retain its acidity as much, although if we're talking about a Virginia Viognier, for example, quite a number of producers are figuring out how to make Viognier in a fresher style and maintain some of that. Sometimes there's a little bit of Petit Manseng added in for that acidity. The Fords, Tanya's adding, Tanya did a great job last week in terms of getting Southern Italy kind of highlighted. The Gruner, she's adding Gruner to it, Albarino, and Pinot Gris. Light in body, high in acid, fresh and crisp. Yep. Some green apple coming through in Nicole's note. So this is something that we can potentially, there was a lot of elements that in the nose were very good for Viognier. Let's talk a little bit about the profile, right? So you have something floral usually in Viognier. You have potentially some apricot element. You have honey element. You have some quality of acid, but usually it's a little bit lower. This is definitely a youthful wine and kind of brighter and more vibrant. So the aromatics on this would potentially help us to rule out other things. So we talked about Albarino, we talked about Chenin Blanc, Petit Manseng, Chardonnay. We've got Pinot Gris in here. We've got Gruner also, thank you, yes. So this is not like a slam dunk Viognier for me. It's possible, and I think it would be a good guess. So let's put Viognier aside for a minute. Let's work on what we're getting out of this. Talk to me again about what you're tasting. Fruit, earth, wood. Fruit giving us what kind of fruit profile? Let's focus the fruit. We've got some melon. There's a little bit of pear there. Craig's saying Chenin Blanc. Rick was saying Petit Manseng. Grapefruit and honey. There's a little bit of peach, a little bit of pear, citrus, melon, pear, and apple. Thank you, Kathy. So some tree fruit, some citrus, some melon. Not as much in the way of tropical, although Jeff, are you seeing some tropicals in here? I'm not getting a whole bunch of tropical other than, say, citrus. Sauvignon Blanc, coming from Pleasant Vale and the Terwilligers. Could it be Sauvignon Blanc? I'm not getting sort of any grassy elements. I'm not, the mineral element that people have noted in the saltiness could be something Sauvignon Blanc oriented. I don't know that I would get the same aromatics from Sauvignon Blanc, so it's something we could potentially consider, but it's not as likely a profile, and the body weight, the texture here doesn't read Sauvignon Blanc to me generally. Peach, so Verdejo coming from Kerry. We also had Arcats Atelli thrown out there, and to be honest, if that's Arcats, I wouldn't know how to get to Arcats per se. I don't know that grape enough. I've tried it maybe 4 times, 5 times. What's the RS? Eric is asking. RS meaning residual sugar. This is dry. This is definitely on the dry side of things. So I think we could potentially work our way away from something like Riesling. Although Riesling can certainly be dry, but when it's dry, it has a little bit more of a piercing acidity and a raciness about it. I think the citrus is more limey element usually. I'm going to walk away from the textural element that would be present in a Riesling, unless we're talking about a Riesling like a Grossgewachs, for example, from Germany that has a bit more alcohol and is richer, but we wouldn't probably be drinking that at the price point. To go back to the Chris Shirley way of determining, the Chris Shirley school of determining which wine is in our glass. Always consider the financial perspective. And then he just throws out San Gimignano Vernaccia, which is really cool. Yeah, let's do that. Let's spend a minute and try to think about this, not necessarily from the varietal standpoint. We've been doing that, and we're going to come back to it. Kathy just pointing out it's not grapey enough for Muscat. We had some Marsanne Roussannes thrown out there, which I think is something to consider too. But what place does this come from? Let's try to get ourselves to a place, if that can help, and then we can start to consider varietals in those places. Is this old world, new world? Is this something that has bright acid and we feel like comes from the old world, or is this something that is identifiably new world? And Sharon, yeah, Muscat oftentimes can be sweet, and it depends. Muscat's a tough grape to talk about because there's Muscadet, there's Muscats from Spain and from southern France, and they each have their different profile, but Muscat is absolutely something to consider with respect to that orange blossom thing we smelled initially. Pineapple, I'm getting a whole bunch of retronasal pineapple, so this could be a dry variation of Petit Manseng from that pineapple element. Tastes like old world Italian for the Shirleys. The Johanssons are saying old world. Sharon's saying old world. Katie's questioning old world. Kathy's noting that it's a medium to medium plus acid. Bright acid from Susan, I agree. So cooler region, potentially, right? But we have some viscosity. We have some medium body. That could be the varietal itself. So like if this is old world and it's Italian, we're back to, say, the Vermentinos, the Verdejo, those types of varietals. Pinot Gris was also talked about. I haven't had Pinot Gris that has this kind of aromatic profile before, so I'm pretty comfortable kind of putting that away. Pineapple is definitely there. So what are we thinking about from a pineapple perspective? Floral and pineapple. Pretty ripe in that profile. That's coming on more and more. Isn't it interesting too, each week as we taste these wines, we're at 19 minutes exactly in right now. 10 minutes in, the wine is one thing, 19 minutes is another thing, and 30 minutes in, it's a very different thing. And when we hang up with each other and have finished up the remainder of the bottle here, it's a whole other wine in another half hour. So more and more, I'm kind of coming back around to Rick's initial impression way back, which was that this was kind of Petit Manseng, but a dry one. So that body weight and that texture is presenting in that fashion to me. Talk to me about Vermentino, guys. I mean, talk to me about what you're thinking in terms of Vermentino or the Vernaccia that was thrown out there. This is awesome that you're throwing that out there, and that's great. Kathy's also throwing out Garganega from Soave. I think from my perspective on Soave, it's a little bit more mineral. It's got potential for the texture. It has a different mouthfeel, like it sheets. Soave does. This has a ballooning quality in the middle that rises and kind of fills the mouth a touch more. It's thicker in texture per Kimberly's note. And Chris is already determining that he likes this wine. Fiano d'Avellino, yeah. I could be wrong there for sure, but it's always like a green tinge to the Fiano for me that, again, more limited experience. So if you've had a Fiano that you think could definitely take you there, I would defer in that respect and say that I'm not positive. What Italian wines have a saline component is a great question coming from Isabel. So what wines do? So mineral, so you're up in the Alto Adige, you could have certainly a Pinot Gris, you could have a Gewurz, for example, with more of a mineral profile. You have Friuli, depending on where it is in Friuli, could have a little bit of mineral. You have certain varieties coming from like the Vermentino di Gaiura from the island property that gives you, from Sardinia, that gives you some minerality. What else gives you some minerality in Italy? There's always we've kind of settled in, right, in multiple conversations about how Italian wines sort of have this verve quality that sort of links them all together. The acidity's lively here for sure, but it's not necessarily presenting to me in a way that is overtly Italian. I could definitely be wrong. Swanbergs are saying I am by way of commenting that it's Vermentino. But not necessarily. It could be Vermentino from elsewhere. I shouldn't assume that you're meaning Vermentino from Italy, but And Carrie, don't have any concern about realizing that you don't know anything about wine. That is the best part about wine in my experience, is that as I learn more, I realize how little I know. When I was 18, my dad said to me, enjoy this year. It's the last year of your life where you'll know everything. And he was 100% correct. It's exactly that way in wine. The more you know, the more you realize, I don't know. And that's the exciting part about it, because even if you did master everything this year, there's another vintage coming and there's more to learn, more to experience, more to enjoy. All right, I'm kind of going all over the map, sorry, because I'm not really clear. And so a number of you have kind of helped put out the world of Italy, and we talked a little bit about Viognier and maybe kind of walked away from Viognier potentially. We talked a little bit about Pinot Grigio, some Vermentino, some Italian whites. Let's talk for a second about the Rhone, because it was mentioned earlier, Marsanne, Roussanne, Viognier being an opportunity in the Rhone and carrying through to the southern part of France. Most people are saying they think this is more Italian than it is French. Can we just knock out France to make sure that it isn't? Most people said they think it's a New World wine. It's an Old World wine. I was caught reading a comment from Isabel saying that it tastes like an interesting Pinot Grigio. Kathy's stepping away from Viognier. She's not getting the peachiness, the apricot quality that she mentioned earlier too. And Carrie's saying it might be good mixed with one. There you go. And yes, the truth is, Carrie, that you just get to keep tasting until you know everything. You know, you go out that way. It's a good thing. Sharon's asking, is it an Australian wine? That's an interesting question. I had thought that as we were discussing the Sauvignon Blanc potential. Sauvignon Blanc Semillon, we talked about the Margaret River last 2 times ago when we were talking about the Semillon. That could be an interesting element here. And Chris is noting that it's just another Tony and Julie twist. So why isn't it France? Marsanne gives you brightness, vibrancy, some of that tree fruit. Roussanne gives you, usually for me, texture and some hazelnut quality. Some people are noting that there isn't enough floral. Some people are noting that there is floral. And I got a whole bunch of floral initially, from white flowers to a little bit of that orange blossom. Some of it's still there, that honeyed element. Like walking away from that honey quality, we were talking about the Rhone. I don't know that we're necessarily going to get that from the Rhone. We could have a Côte du Rhône Blanc Like, so we could have Marsanne, Roussanne, Viognier in a blend. And when we talked about blend before, we talked about the idea that could this be a wine that is a trio, a quartet, a quintet playing, or is this more one note, one beautiful instrument playing? Oftentimes when it's challenging to be able to get to a wine and understand it, it might be a blend. So it's worth considering a higher alcohol element here, that there is a little bit more weight and density from the alcohol, a floral quality coming from a partial Viognier, a little bit of Marsanne, a little bit of Roussanne, perhaps. I'm not sure that's the best conclusion, but it would work, and I think that our argument with what we're saying could be utilized there. We also mentioned Chenin Blanc initially, and should we not talk about that again? The Chenin Blanc would have a honeyed profile. It would have high acid. It would have texture. But it would also have sort of an apple element, and it would have sort of a profile of kind of that lanolin kind of wooliness. Do you have your tasting sheets before you? Are we getting too far off track? Should we work our way through the grid again, kind of revisit? Katie's saying that it could be South African Chenin Blanc, which, yeah, it could be. I think that's absolutely a possibility. For me right now in the running are more kind of Virginia Petit Manseng. Chenin Blanc for sure could happen here. I don't know why I'm not as comfortable with an Italian white. I know I'm going against the curve there for everybody. This also could be Viognier from Virginia with a little bit of acidity put into that. And Erica's bringing us back on target in terms of considering Chardonnay too. Yeah, it absolutely has some elements that Chardonnay can display. If this is Chardonnay, then where does it come from? It's not Burgundy. It's not necessarily Italian Chardonnay. And Kristen, yeah, it's appropriate to say, would he choose a South African Chenin Blanc again? And I don't think that would be the case. So we can probably rule out that Chenin Blanc. We could be talking about a Chenin Blanc from the Loire Valley, but I'm not getting sort of the profile there. So let's put Chenin Blanc away, although it also checks a number of boxes with respect to the acidity. Chris is coming back and saying $25 for a Virginia. It's not. Sean is saying potentially a Virginia blend, and that's possible, although I don't know that they would do that. Jeff's saying somewhere deep in volcanic soils. That's an interesting point. Kathy's saying in North Fork of Long Island. That's interesting too. There's a freshness to this that's coming out again. A Chardonnay Viognier blend from South Africa or from Australia. There's a possibility there. That's interesting. We could be talking about quite a few comments earlier too. People mentioned a cool climate. So you could have a cooler climate Viognier coming from Australia, for example, or South Africa, coastal. There was a mineral quality that we were talking about. So South Australia or from yeah, there's a lot more mineral coming out now. Reminds me of Sicilian white, Jeff says. An Oregon Chardonnay. We had one before too, so we probably wouldn't repeat, but that's an interesting call. There's that. Wow, it's super tasty. It's just getting better and better. Bright acid though, like really high toned acid. For me, it's getting medium plus, but it's the quality of the acid here is a little bit sweet tart. And what presents sweet tart? Hmm. Wow, this is a tough one. I'm sitting with this one for a moment, and it is delicious, as you note, Kathy. The pineapple's more blended, that Erica's noting, and Drew probably behind her. Uh, Robert's also saying Northern Italian Gavi. Um, yeah, there's just texture about. There's a weight to this that, with those flavor profiles, I'm having a hard time putting all those together. Vidal, Rick's throwing out there too. There's too much dimension here for Vidal, in my opinion. The acidity might be interesting, or maybe a Vidal kind of blend. But Isabel's also making a nice point too about the acidity and how it's changed, and the perception has changed, rather. Not how it is changed, but how the perception has changed vis-a-vis dull or vis-a-vis chilled versus warmer. So when it first came out, it was a little bit more muted, and that's true. Robert's just saying all he gets is, Tanya, sorry, crisp and clean and light. So I'm getting more pineapple and floral element, that orange element. I'm still getting that. So, yeah. So I'm going to narrow this down for me, and I know everybody else has been all over, but for me, that acidity is so persistent, that this still could be Chenin Blanc. I don't think it's Viognier. I think I'm going to go with my kind of the biggest gut sense that I had initially, which was to say that this is a dry Petit Malsang, and it may not have come in the right price point, Chris, and so I could be completely wrong for that. But I think I'm going to say Petit Malsang that's dry, and I wouldn't be terribly surprised if there was a little Viognier to it, or if it's Viognier with more Petit Malsang. But Kristen, I will go part your answer, part my answer, which is definitely a white wine. And I'm going to say Virginia Petit Malsang 2018. That's going to be my guess. I don't know that that's correct, but I do appreciate the Italian comments. I could be comfortable enough with like a South African or choice of Chenin Blanc. I could be comfortable enough with even a Rhone blend, and a Rhone blend coming from Australia, coming from South Africa. So I'm not 100%. Kathy's coming in with Suave 18. Swanbergs are Falangina. No volcanoes for Jeff and Virginia. You're quite right. So anybody else want to put their final answer on record? Okay. Yeah, I'm going to stay with it. I'm going to stay with. I had a moment to rethink it, but I'm going Petit Malsang and Suavia, Garganega. Hey guys, that was great. You knocked it out of the park. Some of you just nailed it. That's really cool. Italian white. This is from Suave, which is in the northeastern part of Italy. That's so good. See? I should have listened. I always do better when I listen to you. So this is 100% Garganega, which is awesome. Sometimes there's some Trebbiano in there. And this is a pure expression of Suave. So yeah, those of you that had an inclination that this had an Italian quality to it. And my recollection of Suave needs updating. So that's cool. That's neat that there's the high acid quality here, the honeyed element. There's a floral element that I don't remember associating with Suave necessarily, but I'll have to add that to sort of the Rolodex. So for those of you that were like me, not at all on the right plane, what we're trying to do is build our taste memory and have a reference point. And I just use the term Rolodex, but it's like you'd be running through the Rolodex going, all right, what has floral quality? What has honey? What has high acidity? What has medium texture? So this is cool. This is a tasty wine. And this Suave is, according to Suave, is a wine for flowered terraces and summer nights, which is appropriate. This has a little bit more of a floral quality too. So really great. As always, an educational experience. It's humbling at points, but that humility is rewarded with a glass of wine, so it's not so bad, right? Humility best consumed in a glass. And yeah, Chris, they're always just messing with me. That's okay. That's the way it goes, and it's just a lot of fun. And as I said in the beginning, I appreciate the opportunity to be with you each week. Thanks very much. It's been a week that has been challenging for a lot of us, and it's all the more meaningful to spend time with each of you this way and get to drink these excellent wines that, even though they're messing with us, that Tony and Julie are picking out for us. So appreciate them and appreciate you. As I mentioned before, too, if you're interested in that lineup of Pagao, please shoot Tony an email, tony@fieldandmainrestaurant.com. And if you want more of this, I think we have a couple cases remaining that we also have available. So this would be delicious all summer long with salads, with light shellfish, with we have a scallop dish kind of running right now that has a little bit of green aromatics to it by way of some fennel and some sorrel on the plate, which would be fun. Gosh, I would enjoy this wine with goat cheese, like a little drizzle of honey would be magnificent on that. Daniel Lieberson makes honey vinegar at Lindera Farm. Check that out. It would be fun with this particular thing. And he makes a bunch of like magnolia vinegars and things of that sort where you could spritz that on pretty much any green and fresh vegetable that you're getting for the week. And to your question, Brian, when do we pick a wine for Tony and Julie to guess? That's coming up. We're actually going to do 2 back-to-back sessions on the 25th and the 2nd. That will be Tony. I'm going to put Tony in the hot seat for 2 back-to-back sessions. He'll get a white, he'll get a red, and he'll work those with you guys. So that'll be a lot of fun. Looking forward to that, as well as subsequent tastings with you. So cheers, everybody. Matthew, thank you for the good job, but it wasn't. It was our job, and you guys did a better job than me, so that's perfect. Cheers, everybody. Till next week.